At 68, I never imagined I'd spend my birthday sleeping on the cold, oil-stained floor of a derelict garage in the industrial outskirts of Seattle. The air was thick with the scent of old grease and rusted metal, and the heavy rain hammered relentlessly on the corrugated iron roof. My bones ached, but the pain in my chest was far worse. It was the sting of betrayal, sharper than any winter wind. I had spent 42 years building a life with Robert, only to be cast out like a piece of broken machinery by the very son I had carried in my arms. The morning had started with a heavy fog rolling off the Puget Sound, a gray shroud that seemed to predict the disaster to come. I was in the plush, oak-paneled office of a downtown attorney, a room that smelled of expensive leather and old money. My son Julian sat across from me in a $3,000 navy suit. He didn't look at me. He was busy checking his gold watch, his face a mask of calculated impatience. We were there for the reading of my late husband Robert's will. Robert had been a quiet man who ran a modest hardware store for 40 years. I expected a quiet life in our family home, surrounded by the memories we had built together over decades. To my son Julian, the lawyer began, his voice a monotonous drone. I leave the family estate in Bellevue, the hardware business, and all liquid assets totaling approximately $4 million. Julian didn't even try to hide his smirk. He leaned back in the leather chair, crossing his polished shoes, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He didn't offer me a glance, let alone a word of comfort. He had already moved on. Then came the part that shattered my world. To my beloved wife, Martha, I leave the old storage garage on 5th Industrial Way and the small, rusted iron key kept inside my bedside drawer. The silence that followed was deafening. Julian burst into a cruel, mocking laugh that echoed off the high ceilings. A garage? Dad left you a pile of scrap metal in the slums? I always knew he thought you were a simpleton, Mom. Julian stood up, adjusting his silk tie with a flourish. I'm selling the Bellevue house on Monday. My wife Sarah and I need the space and the capital for our new tech venture. You have 24 hours to move your inheritance to your new palace. Don't bother calling for help. My movers are only paid to take my things. He left without a backward glance. I stood on the sidewalk as his luxury car sped away, splashing rain on my coat. By nightfall, I stood before the rusted, graffiti-covered rolling door of the garage. It was a miserable, forgotten corner of the city. With trembling hands, I inserted the old iron key into the heavy padlock. It turned with a defiant, metallic click. I pushed the door open, expecting piles of trash and broken furniture. Instead, I found a cavernous space filled with long, dancing shadows. I pulled the corner of the heavy canvas tarp, coughing as decades of trapped dust filled the air like a storm. Beneath the fabric was not a pile of junk, but a pristine, vintage 1960s tool cabinet. However, it wasn't made of steel. It was crafted from heavy, dark mahogany, intricately carved with symbols of gears and celestial bodies. On top of it sat a single sealed envelope with my name written in Robert's neat, architectural script. Martha, the letter inside began, Julian has my blood, but he never had my heart. He sees only the price of things, never their value. You, however, always saw the soul. Look behind the cabinet, move the lever, and remember our first anniversary. I pushed the heavy mahogany chest. To my shock, it moved silently on hidden, high-tech rollers. Behind it was a small door made of reinforced military-grade steel with a glowing digital keypad. I remembered a sequence of numbers Robert used to hum to our son as a lullaby. I punched them in. The door hissed open like a vault, revealing a staircase leading deep underground. My heart hammered against my ribs as I descended into a brightly lit, climate-controlled basement that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. The room was a sanctuary of genius, filled with brilliant blueprints and strange mechanical inventions. Robert hadn't just been a hardware store owner, he was a master horologist and a secret inventor of high-precision instruments. On a central pedestal sat a small, glowing golden orb. A note next to it read, "The Perpetual Motion Patent. My life's work. It is worth more than every cent I gave Julian combined. Use it wisely, my love." I realized my husband had lived a double life to protect his creations from those who would exploit them. Suddenly, the garage door above creaked open. I froze, dousing my flashlight. I heard Julian's voice, loud and impatient. "I told you, Sarah, the GPS says her car is still here. She's probably hiding in the dark, crying over her rust. We need to clear this lot. I've already got a developer interested in the land for a parking structure." I realized they hadn't come to check on me. They had come to ensure I was out of their way for profit. I stayed in the hidden basement, watching them through a small, concealed floor vent. Julian was kicking old boxes, his face twisted in disgust. "Look at this junk." Dad was senile. He left her a pile of trash. He stood right over the hidden door, his expensive shoes inches from the mechanism. He never realized that beneath his feet lay a fortune that would make his $4 million look like pocket change. "We'll have the bulldozers here by Friday," Sarah said, her voice echoing through the vent. "Once this eyesore is gone, we can finally forget she exists." They laughed and walked out, the heavy door slamming shut behind them. I sat in the silence of the lab, surrounded by my husband's genius. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a guardian. Julian had the money, but I had the power. For the next few months, I became a ghost in the city. While Julian was busy parading around Seattle as the new king of hardware, I was underground, literally and figuratively. I spent my days in the high-tech lab, learning the true extent of Robert's genius. He had developed a frictionless energy turbine device that could revolutionize the power industry. The rusty key had handed me the future of energy. I hired a top-tier legal team using secret emergency funds Robert had stashed in a Swiss account. My lead attorney, Mr. Sterling, was a man who looked like he had been carved out of granite. "Julian is moving fast, Martha," Sterling warned me. "He's trying to sell the family hardware chain to a conglomerate. He needs the cash to cover the massive debts from his failing tech startup." Julian was selling his father's soul for quick cash. I gave Sterling the order. "Buy it! Buy everything he sells, but do it through shell companies." I want him to think he's getting a lifeline, when in reality, he's just handing me back the pieces of our life. We began the shadow buyback. Every time Julian put an asset on the market to save his skin, I was the anonymous buyer lurking in the dark. He was handing me his inheritance, piece by piece, without even knowing it. Julian's arrogance was his undoing. He and Sarah had moved into a sprawling penthouse, convinced they were invincible. He poured money into Miller Tech, a company that promised revolutionary software but delivered nothing but shiny presentations. He was bleeding $100,000 a week. He became desperate. He started calling me again, looking for easy prey. "Mom, look," he said during a visit to the garage, where I purposely looked as disheveled as possible. "The developers are offering $500,000 for this dirt lot. Just sign the papers. I'll put you in a nice assisted living facility. You don't belong here among the grease and the rats." I looked him in the eye, seeing the soulless vacuum where a son should be. "This garage is all I have left of your father, Julian. Not selling." Julian slammed his hand against a rusted locker. "You're an old fool. You're standing in the way of progress." He had no idea that progress was already happening beneath his feet. The final blow came when Julian attempted to steal Robert's designs from our old attic. He found plenty, but they were the dummy blueprints Robert had planted as a trap. Julian sold them to a rival firm for a massive payout, thinking he had outsmarted everyone. He didn't realize he had just committed corporate fraud. I sat in my lab, watching the transaction happen in real time on my monitors. The flawed designs would soon be exposed. and Julian would be legally responsible for the failure. I felt a mixture of sadness and cold justice. The son who had tried to discard his mother was now building his own prison out of greed and stolen lies. The stage was set for the final reckoning. Julian's Miller Tech was soon sued for patent infringement. The flawed blueprints he sold were now his noose. His investors pulled out, his bank accounts were frozen, and the anonymous buyer had called in all his debts. He was bankrupt, facing criminal charges, and about to be evicted from his penthouse. He had nowhere left to run but the one place he despised the most: the old, rusty garage. He arrived at 5th Industrial Way at midnight. He was soaked to the bone, his expensive suit ruined, his spirit broken. Sarah had already left him, taking what little jewelry remained. He pounded on the rolling door. "Mom, open up! I know you're in there. I need help. They're going to arrest me." I didn't open the door immediately. I let him feel the cold. I let him feel the weight of the silence I had lived in for weeks. Finally, I pressed the button. The garage door rolled up with a thunderous mechanical groan. Julian stumbled in, falling to his knees on the oily floor. "Mom, please. I've lost everything. The house, the money, the firm. It's all gone." I stood before him, dressed not in my old rags, but in a bespoke silk suit. I looked down at him. "You didn't lose it, Julian. You threw it away. You treated your father's legacy like a casino chip." "I can fix it," he cried, clutching out my coat. "Just give me the money for the garage lot. I know it's worth something." I smiled a cold, sad smile. "The lot is worth nothing, Julian. But what's underneath it?" I walked to the mahogany cabinet and pushed it aside. Julian's eyes widened to the size of saucers as the steel door hissed open, revealing the blinding light and the million-dollar laboratory below. "Stop!" I said, my voice echoing like a judge's gavel. "This is not yours. Robert knew you would destroy anything of beauty you touched. He left this to me to protect it from people like you." I showed him the documents, the shadow buyback records. "I own your debt, Julian. I own your apartment. I own your father's hardware store. I am the anonymous buyer who took everything back while you were busy trying to sell your soul." He collapsed, weeping into his hands. I didn't send him to prison, though I could have. Instead, I made him sign a contract. He would work as a delivery driver for the hardware store, the very business he mocked for 10 years. He would live in a small one-bedroom apartment I provided. No luxury, no shortcuts. You will learn the value of $1, Julian. And maybe in 10 years you will finally understand what it means to be a man. Today, I am the CEO of Miller Innovations. We are building the first clean energy grid in Washington state. I still keep my office in the renovated garage, though it now has glass walls and a view of the harbor. Every morning, I look at the old iron key on my desk. It reminds me that a legacy isn't built of gold, but of character. Julian is still driving that truck, his hands calloused. He hasn't earned my forgiveness yet, but he's finally earning a living. Life has a way of balancing the scales. The man who is supposed to be a success is learning humility on the streets of Seattle. The woman who is supposed to be an immutable old lady is designing the future. As I watch the sun set over the Puget Sound, I know Robert would be proud. The rusty key didn't just open a garage, it opened a new world of justice, purpose, and a bond that greed could never break.